Here's my Elliott's Aster in spring, when it just starts to emerge from its winter sleep. If you have a wet site, live on a lake, or have a problem area that stays wet because of too much clay, then you can grow this beautiful native aster called Elliott's Aster. It's a perennial wildflower that grows to about 5 feet in height and spreads by underground runners. It produces beautiful lavender-colored flowers that all the pollinators appreciate. The flowers begin to appear in late fall and early winter. This clip is from November the 1st, and the buds are formed and waiting to open. I bought my original plants from mail-order natives online, but if you see this growing along the roadside in moist ditches, you should try to transplant some of it. Be sure to remove the flowering stems so that the plant can give its resources to its roots and recover more quickly. I know it seems drastic, but it will help the plant to grow stronger. I have this planted in between 2 paths that I keep mowed. I had planned on it being an island of just Elliott's Aster, and it's doing really well and is going along with my plan perfectly. I do occasionally get runners in the path, but it gives me plants to share or some to start in another area of my property. This is about 5 feet in height. The pollinators that are attracted to the flowers also attract insect-eating songbirds, especially migratory ones, because the blooms coincide with winter migration. So the Elliott's Aster can provide double duty, providing for songbirds and pollinators at the same time. The black-winged Dahana moth is bright and beautiful and a great pollinator. Their colors are striking, and their beautiful combed antennae are works of art. Its larval host plant is Spanish moss. I have lots of it, and I love Spanish moss. It's a great host plant because it takes absolutely zero maintenance. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to purchase it. And contrary to popular belief, it doesn't kill the plant that it is on because it's an air plant. It's epiphytic and it gets its nutrients from the air and not the plant that it is hanging from. I always have butterfly visitors in my green space, so these guys are my regulars. But it's wonderful to see them taking advantage of the Elliott's Aster blooms. The Gulf Fritillary has silver scales that shine when the sunlight hits them just right. Gulf Fritillary's host plants are passion vines. The Ocola Skipper is a little brown bullet-shaped skipper that flits around the garden searching for nectar. Their host plants are aquatic grasses called plume grasses. Their scientific name is saccharum. the monarchs are always front and center in my green space because I grow a lot of milkweed. So there are always monarchs on all of my flowers, and I always have monarch caterpillars. Monarchs use milkweeds as their host plant. The white peacock's favorite host plant is Phyla nodiflora, commonly called frog fruit or turkey tangle fog fruit, depending on the source you read. The common eastern bumblebees love blue and purple flowers, so they love the Elliott's Aster blooms. When it is in bloom, there's a constant stream of these big fuzzy guys and gals all day long. Bumblebees are communal nesters and generally nest in the ground. They are also known to nest in discarded human items, such as rolls of carpet, piles of shingles, or just about any pile of anything that keeps the main entrance dry and accessible. They can be aggressive when defending their nests, but otherwise get along with people just fine. They're fantastic pollinators and go to a wide variety of flowers throughout their daily visits. The Florida owlet moth is a drab little moth, but it's still fascinating to watch it drink from the flowers. Most people don't want them in their gardens because the larvae are the infamous armyworms, or sometimes called cutworms. If you've ever found your plant seedlings cut off at the ground level, the larvae of these moths are probably the culprits. However, they are a natural part of Florida and do a job pollinating as adults and provide food for wasps and birds in both life stages. I've seen these large wasps many times before and finally got to ID one. It turns out to be a wasp that specializes in using stink bugs to raise their young. They're solitary nesters, and they dig a nest in the soil and then search out a stink bug, paralyze it, and take it back to their burrow, place it in the burrow, and lay one of their eggs on it. When the larvae hatch, they have a ready-made meal of stink bug waiting for them. They're large and look intimidating, but they get along just fine with humans. I appreciate that they're keeping the stink bug population in check for me without me even having to think about it. So next time you see a stink bug, maybe take pause and realize it's a good thing for this wasp and her offspring. The great golden digger wasp is huge and intimidating, but it's a flower lover and gets along just fine with humans. They're related to the cicada killer wasp. Their size can really freak people out, but they help with pollination and pest eradication, so they're a good wasp to have around. These are another solitary wasp that nests in the ground. It will use most caterpillars and insects to place in its burrow for its larvae. It's very smart, and once it locates a host plant, it will kill or capture most of the caterpillars on it. I have a love-hate relationship with this wasp because I want all of my butterfly caterpillars to survive, but I also want the wasps to survive. As a butterfly lover, once I see a digger wasp zero in on a particular host plant, I move the caterpillars to other plants and let the mom wasp find other insects that are less precious to me. I know I shouldn't be interfering with nature, but I can't help myself. The honeybees are constant on this flower along with the bumblebees. Many honeybees visit the flowers, and there's a constant line of traffic from them. I can always count on the honeybees, but I prefer to see native pollinators. The honeybees are beautiful and they're fun to watch, like this one with the huge baskets of pollen on her legs. I'm more than happy to share my flowers with the honeybees. Their green hoverfly resembles a horsefly, but it doesn't bite or sting, and it hangs out on flowers and not humans or horses. They're very bizarre looking flies. The adults consume nectar and pollen, and their larvae eat aphids. So this is another pollinator that does double duty. It pollinates the flowers as an adult and is a pest predator as a larva. So leaving some aphids in your garden can help raise their babies. The Plushback Hover Flies have the same life cycle as a green hoverfly. But as you can see, the coloration is completely different, and the Plushback has a lot of oranges and yellows and unusual striping. Many times I confuse them with beetles when they're flying. The margined leatherwing beetle uses pollen and nectar for food as adults, and their larvae eat any bug that they can catch that is smaller than themselves. Sometimes they're mistaken for fireflies. The mother beetle lays her eggs in the soil, and when they hatch, the young eat a variety of insects in the soil and in the leaf litter. The Mexican paper wasp creates a paper nest that looks similar to the larger red paper wasps, but on a much smaller scale. They're great at hiding their tiny nests underneath small leaves. The only time I've ever been stung by one of these little guys is when I accidentally grabbed a nest while I was pulling weeds. They're very docile and get along fine with humans. The adults feed on pollen and nectar, and they feed their young with small insects or pieces of insects. I have a love-hate relationship with milkweed bugs because on one hand they're good pollinators, but on the other they suck the juices out of my milkweed pods. About the only time I take action is when there's an overpopulation, and then I just flick them into hot soapy water and get their numbers back into check. The red and black mason wasp is another solitary wasp that visits these flowers. Mason wasps consume many garden pests such as armyworms, cutworms, and loopers to feed their babies. They nest in cavities much like leafcutter bees. They may be seen making nests in keyholes, small holes in fences, and other man-made items that they find suitable. They put a paralyzed insect in each nest section along with a single egg. They will use bee houses if you provide them. The males have a yellow patch on their forehead. So as you can see in this clip, this wasp happens to be a male. The Slosson's mason wasp is the second native red and black mason wasp that we have in Florida. It's named after an American entomologist and author named Annie Trumbull Slosson. In 1892, she was one of the founding members of the New York Entomology Society and the first female member. Not much is known about their nesting habits other than that they use old insect burrows and bee houses, much like leafcutter bees do. Take care of your pollinators and they'll help you in your garden. I hope this helps you ID some of the bugs you see flying around your garden. Enjoy your pollinators and enjoy your green space.